Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by the ace of our staff, Sean Zerillo, to break down Friday's slate in Major League Baseball. We're going to do this every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday throughout the season. We also have Billy Ward coming in at the end of the episode for his YRFI NRFI plays for Friday. And I got to say this, having been in this host chair for about a month now, looking at your process, Sean, it amazes me because on College Football Saturdays, there's usually one a month where I go, I don't love this slate. I'm struggling to find 3 or 4 plays out of 65 games. Not you. I look at your card. You got your favorite best bet. You got an underdog every single episode. And then you look at the rest of your card. You got 5 to 6 games where you have strong leans, if not outright plays. I'm impressed with, how prolific you can be here. So tell me a little bit about what's the lightest day that you have during the regular season where you're just not feeling anything on the board?
Yeah, I think there was a Thursday. I think it was last Thursday. I was considering just having one bet. There was one edge that popped overnight. I was totally fine with that. I'm not looking to have a certain number of bets per day. I don't generally like to have more than 12 to 14 bets in a day. I try to limit myself to that many, one per game for the day. But going into yesterday, even there were 2 sides, 2 totals I liked overnight. When I run the model, and we'll get to this with the Jays game a little bit later, because I was actually planning on talking about this. It's like a magic trick for me every day. I'm not necessarily going in planning on betting on or against certain pitchers. I may know based on past games that I've run or, past games that I bet that I am higher or lower than the betting market on certain pitchers and may have an expectation that I may continue to be on or against those specific sides. But by and large, it's a magic trick for me every day. I run the model. I try to do everything independently before I see the lines, drop them into a spreadsheet, put in what the actual current odds are there, and then see where my edges are that pop up that are greater than 2%. So yeah, it really just comes down to each individual slate, updating my data constantly, updating my data every 2 or 3 days, getting new pitching information in there. This is something else I was going to talk about too, but the reason why I talk about Stuff Plus so much and body array and these pitch modeling metrics, this stuff is predictive. Within 50 pitches, within 100 pitches, within one start, this data becomes predictive. Strikeout rate takes a month to stabilize. If you want to look at other data points, they take significantly longer periods of time to stabilize. So the reason why we talk about Stuff Plus, constantly track it from start to start, is because it stabilizes much more quickly than other things. And as a result, since I'm constantly modifying those numbers, modifying the inputs based off of pitchers' most recent appearances, we are going to get fluctuation from one start to the next. And I will probably be different than the market from one start to the next. But that's what I'm trying to do. I don't want to align with the market. I don't want to align with every opening line. Otherwise, I'm probably just using the same data and information and weighting at the same that everybody else is or that the market is. I want to have differences relative to the market, and I want my model to have opinions. And I'm basing that more so off of defensive information, base running information, and then probably weighting pitch modeling metrics and things like swing speed data, other StatCast data, newer data points for hitters and pitchers more aggressively than other models are. So that's just generally the process and what I'm looking for and what I'm weighting. And based off of all of those inputs coming in, we're, making our determinations of what to bet those days based on the edges that pop up. So yeah, no pre-planned bets or targets. It's all based off of what the model says is value for that day.
You have all your modeling, your data, your advanced data. Let's look at just some big narratives, some big headlines in the game, and then I'll have a question on the back end for you. The Mets stay hot. They swept both the Cards and the Phillies in this homestand. They allowed just 69 runs over the course of the entire season, which is the lowest number in the bigs. So there's not much to do with the Mets at this point. I think they're a team that's on a collision course with the Dodgers in October. At least that's the perception mainly across all of sports media. But the question here, though, that collision course with the Dodgers, will the Dodgers even be there? Because the NL West right now is the only division in baseball with 4 teams with winning records. It's just been incredible top to bottom outside of the Rockies. So if we're playing a game of buy, sell, and hold, Padres, Giants, Dodgers, Snakes, who are you most bullish on long-term? Which team do you think will finish at the bottom of this 4-pack? And then which team are you holding on? You need to see more data, guys either getting healthy or maybe returning to the mean a little bit in terms of their batting average or their ERA.
Yeah, I don't think my order of them has changed relative to the preseason. It's Dodgers, D-backs, and then a gap. And then maybe the Giants and Padres are closer together now than I viewed them coming into this season. I had the Padres still a little bit ahead of the Giants before this season. I think I've upgraded the Giants. I don't view the Padres. Maybe the Padres bullpen is a little bit better than I expected it to be, but They have a number of offensive injuries that they're dealing with right now. Tatis still hasn't gotten hurt yet. His annual injury likely to come at some point soon. So, if Tatis puts up an MVP caliber season, he's pacing for like 50-50. Obviously, the Padres are probably going to make the playoffs. I think it's likelier than not that he gets hurt at some point the rest of the way. And you add that to Jake Cronenworth, Jackson Merrill, Jason Hayward, Luis Arraez all being hurt at the moment. Their bullpen has been unbelievable. But as I've mentioned multiple times, this is a team where Dylan Cease, Luis Arraez expiring contracts, dealing with ownership battles, unlikely to add any pieces during the season. So if this team is trending closer to 500 by the trade deadline, if they go through a long losing streak at some point after starting out the season really hot, I think Cease and Arraez can still get traded. If they are staring up at 3 teams above them in their division who are all playing better than them, if they're in fourth place all of a sudden in the NL West, the Padres may turn into sellers. So just keep that in mind too. Whereas the Giants clearly buyers still, the D-backs clearly buyers still after the off seasons they had. Blake Snell getting reevaluated for the Dodgers. It seems like they may lose him for a significant stretch, if not the entire season. And then you have the other injuries that they always, have crop up. Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto making it through a full season still seems like an issue. So overall, I still think the D-backs have the highest floor with their offense. The Dodgers have a higher floor, but like of the 3 teams behind the Dodgers, I think the D-backs have the highest floor. The Padres probably have the highest ceiling if everybody's healthy offensively and the bullpen is all there and the starting rotation is together. The Giants, though, I just don't overlook this team. The bullpen's elite. The lineup's hitting. Chapman, it's a very good defensive team, and that's kind of what gets underrated here too. Patrick Bailey's an elite pitch framer. Matt Chapman's a Gold Glover. So overall, what this means is that the Central gets squeezed, right? If the Braves, the Phillies, and then 4 teams in the West and the Mets are all this good, like the Central is not getting more than one playoff team. So that's really, I think, the bigger takeaway is the NL West, the NL East are so incredibly strong. The American League seems pretty wide open. The NL Central is just kind of confined to one playoff team at the moment. But yeah, I'd order them the same as I would coming into the year. And Arizona we'll get to in a little bit, but that offense, just absolutely phenomenal getting on base every inning.
You mentioned the coastal elites in the NL, the West, the East. These teams are just stacking wins, really separating themselves, at least in the NL East. So Atlanta had no choice but to start reeling off some wins, and they finally got it going in the right direction. The Braves have won 5 of 6. That homestand may have saved their season. If it had gone the opposite direction, that hole may have been too big to dig out of. Now they head to the desert to take on the D-backs, and they're hoping for 5 good innings out of Chris Sale. How do you see this one playing out from a side or total perspective for your best bet?
I like the over here, over 8.5 up to 9 at about even money. Roof will be open in Arizona tonight. Arizona does a great job of letting us know multiple days in advance whether or not they plan on having the roof open. Houston, Arlington, they leave it a mystery for me every single day, which is not super enjoyable to navigate through Twitter and search roof, Daikin Park, roof, Houston, roof, Arlington. Like I look like schizophrenic searches in Twitter. But in terms of the Atlanta-Arizona matchup tonight, Arizona blew the game last night against Tampa Bay with their bullpen. They should have their A relievers mostly tonight. Thompson and I believe Miller threw on consecutive days, or at least 2 and 3 days. So Martinez should be fine tonight. Trey Jameson got in the game a couple days ago. Big podcast favorite here. Mike, you weren't on the show when Trey Jameson made his major league debut. This is a guy who had Tommy John last season. But the story with Trey Jameson is that he's faster than Corbin Carroll. Beat him in a race twice in the same day. 80 grade speed from a pitcher, just an absolutely stupendously elite athlete. He's like 6 foot, 180. It doesn't seem like he would have, the explosive athleticism based on the body type. But yeah, apparently Trey Jameson faster than Corbin Carroll, and he can hit 102 on the gun. So athleticism translates. That explosive speed translates to the mound clearly in terms of getting the velo up. But with the roof open here, 2 really good offenses. As I said, Arizona's offense, a lot of fun to watch because they're first in walk rate and they have the second lowest strikeout rate in baseball. They're really hard to put away at the plate. Another reason why seeing a team come back on them like Tampa Bay last night, Tampa Bay the past 2 nights, pretty impressive because Arizona seems to be the team that comes back on people on other teams because they are on base in every inning. Now, Chris Sale, Zach Gallen, I'm down on both of these starters relative to last year, relative to prior years. I've been down on Gallen for a few years. Sale, 3.98 expected ERA. He was at 2.8 last season. His body ERA has gone up from 3.3 to 3.9. His location is what is worsened. It's down from 111 to 101. So the velocity is still there. But Sale was dealing with arm soreness at the end of last year. He got scratched from his game 2 start in the playoffs with back spasms. It's a guy who has generally not stayed healthy, in the latter half of his career until last year when he finally won a Cy Young. So likelier than not that Chris Sale dealing with some injuries, which is causing a performance dip. And then Zach Gallen on the other end, 4.5 expected ERA this season, 13% strikeout minus walk rate, which is down 5% from last year. 90 stuff plus, career worst. And then his velocity is also down a tick on his fastball. So down on both of these starting pitchers. Roof open in Arizona, 2 really good offenses. The Braves getting hot over the past week, 5th in WRC plus. They're 7th over the past 2 weeks. So everything kind of lines up with a higher scoring game in Arizona tonight, plus their bullpen getting used up a bunch the past couple nights against the Rays. So yeah, make this total about 9.1. Happy to bet the over up to 9 at even money. I'll set a shorter price target than I normally would on that. Normally I cut it off at 8.5 minus 112, but we'll go up to 9 at even money on this one.
Looking at your favorite underdog, we identified the Rays in the preseason as a team that could get off to a hot start because of their schedule. They opened with the Rockies and the Pirates, but then we said you should consider potentially fading them getting off of that bandwagon, and that played off exactly as we predicted. They won their first 2 series, and since then they've been 7-12 overall. But we get Shane Baz on the bump here as a slight dog, coming off a horrific outing against the Yankees, so a nice bounce back spot. It was just his second start in which he was touched up for more than 3 runs across his last 16, dating back to the beginning of last season. So you clearly believe in him here as your underdog of Friday's slate.
Yeah, Baz is an elite pitcher. Everything under the hood suggests ace-level starter, 2.5 expected ERA, 25% strikeout minus walk rate, 111 pitching plus, all in ace-level territory. His velocity is back up this year to 97 miles an hour, which is where it was in his rookie season. This is a guy who's had a number of arm injuries coming up, but was considered one of the top pitching prospects in the minors at one point. Came up, looked the part, had Tommy John, went back down, came back up last year, dealt with more arm injuries, got delayed till later in the season. And then when he came back, he looked pretty good. And now he's even better this year than he was last year. I actually project him as a better pitcher than Michael King. Michael King is also an ace-level starter, at worst, the high-end number 2, but probably a low-end number 1. Expected ERA under 3 for King this year. The strikeout minus walk rate, a little bit closer to league average, but he doesn't give up hard hit balls. So as a result, you combine, it's more of a Hunter Brown profile where you combine the above average strikeout minus walk rate, and then you add in no hard hits, and that creates the elite level starter where Baz is going to give up a little bit more hard hit balls, but he's going to have a higher strikeout minus walk rate and get out of those jams with runners on base. Now, as I just mentioned it at the top of the show, the Padres are super banged up at the moment. Arise, Cronenworth, Jackson Merrill, Jason Hayward, all on the IL. So now their lineup against a right-handed pitcher, you go from 8 above average hitters against a righty starter to 4 above average hitters against a righty starter. You're throwing 4 more bats in the bottom of that lineup who are below average alongside your catcher. And then also your projected WRC plus goes from like 115 to 102 against a right-handed starter because it's all Tatis, Machado, Bogarts at the top of the lineup. So this is a diminished Padres lineup, a severely diminished Padres lineup from what they would have if all of these guys were healthy. I make the Rays about plus 113. I would bet this down to about plus 120. I know they had that extra innings game last night. Only Fairbanks and Uceta worked back-to-back days. So the rest of the bullpen should be relatively good to go here tonight. Padres do have a bullpen advantage, but the Rays may have a lineup advantage, which is not something I would say against very many teams. And against very many teams that have, Fernando Tatis Jr. in their lineup. But the back half of this Padres lineup is a serious detriment. And it's part of the reason why I was down on this team coming into the year. The lineup depth, the rotation depth overall didn't seem to be there. The bullpen has picked up a lot of the slack, but we'll see if they can keep scoring runs with half their lineup missing.
I wasn't kidding when I said at the top that Sean left no stone unturned on Friday's slate. We're going to talk about 9 games, rapid fire, other plays or leans on your card. Let's start with Boston, Cleveland. One of the early trends of this season is that Cleveland home field unders have been absolutely mints, cashing at a 67% clip, limboing under the total by an average of 1.5 runs per game at Progressive Field this season. But you're bucking the trend here. Is this weather related because it's going to be muggy, rainy, or is it based on pitching modeling? Why do you like over 9 between the Red Sox and the Guardians?
I think Tanner Houck may be completely shot, and I believe he is an implosion candidate in every start to the point where the Guardians could clear the team total on their own. And that's not something I'd say about the Guardians on almost any day. But Tanner Houck, legitimate implosion potential every time he goes out there now. So he surpassed the career high in innings last year. Houck threw about 170 innings. The year before it was 106. So he blew past that. Every year before that was 60. They converted him from a reliever to a starter. But last year in the second half, as he surpassed the career high in innings, you see the performance dip. And it's basically the same numbers he has through the first half of this season. So first half of last year, 316 expected FIP, 18% strikeout minus walk rate. Second half, 4.4 expected FIP, 7.5% strikeout minus walk rate. To start this year, 4.4, 6.5%. So what he's doing aligns with what he did last year after he surpassed his career high in innings. After the stuff dipped, it's dipped further this year. Stuff plus down from 104 to 98. Location plus down from 105 to 101. Body ERA up almost a full run from 3.5 to 4.4. So Houck really struggling with his command, not able to strike guys out and put him away. And overall, the pitch modeling metrics say that he's a worse pitcher. I think he's injured. And I think the Red Sox are continuing to send him out there, hoping it gets a little bit better. I mean, his last start was better. And the velocity is fine. So there's no like significant red flag in the profile aside from the modeling and the underlying indicators going down. But, you know, the Red Sox are probably watching him throw bullpens and watching the velo be fine. And they're like, I don't know, maybe he'll figure it out. So maybe it's a command thing. Maybe it's, you know, a location thing. He's working with new catchers. He had Connor Wong for most of the year last year. He's working with the Boston backup catchers right now because Wong's on the IL. So maybe it's a catcher-pitcher relationship, pitch sequencing thing. But overall, he seems to be a gas can, you know, and be carrying it with him in every start. And Ben Lively kind of, I view similarly. Lively is a number 4, number 5 starter who has pitched to a sub-4 ERA the past 2 years, but I think he's mostly been fortunate. Projections 4.3 to 4.9, body ERA of 4.8 the past 2 years. Like Ben Lively is a number 5 starter. Guardians bullpen I mentioned up and down on this year. The Guardians offense, though, you know, you mentioned the Guardians going under a lot at home. The Guardians actually rank above average offensively this year, which is very surprising because it seems like Jose Ramirez and Kyle Manzardo and like that's pretty much it in their lineup. I guess Quan, but they are hitting. They've been an above average offense, 14th on the year, 14th over the past 2 weeks. Boston 5th over the past week. So the Red Sox starting to heat up offensively. Their lefties really struggled to start the year. Casas, Devers, seems like those guys are starting to hit a little bit more. Duran's definitely starting to hit a little bit more. So like the over here, this was initially my best bet. It just came all the way up from 8.5, not all the way up, but it came up from 8.5 to 9. I wouldn't bet it past 9 at minus 105. It seemed to be getting there this morning, so wanted to go with a different total as my best bet, but I like this one quite a bit as well.
All right, the Cubs just survived 11 straight games against the best teams from the NL West, and they went 7-4 in that stretch, including a 4-1 mark against the Dodgers. Colin Ray has been used as a starter in his last 2 outings, and he's performed really well, giving up just 2 runs across 8 1/3 while facing the Dodgers and D-backs. He's surging. The Phillies are coming off, losing a series, getting swept by the Mets. We shouldn't overthink this. Minus 130, just lock in the Cubs. Is that right?
Yeah, against Taijuan Walker, too. You know, Taijuan Walker was considered the worst pitcher in baseball last season. It seems like he's come back to where he was 2 years ago. He won 17 games 2 years ago, but a 4 or 5 ERA. Like, Taijuan Walker can be a serviceable back-end starter. It seems like this year, everything has come back up to where it was 2 years ago. Velocity stuff, everything. So Walker can be a number 4 starter, but I actually think Ray is better than projections, too. This is Ray's second stint with the Cubs. Previously, he was with the Cubs. Before he was with the Brewers. The Brewers took him, said, stop throwing your 4-seam fastball, throw a bunch of sinkers. Came back to the Cubs this year. The Cubs said, hey, stop throwing your sinker, throw your 4-seam fastball again. You can see the sinker 4-seam go from like 10%, 10% 4-seam, 40% sinker with the Brewers, and then flip both times with the Cubs. Kind of a funny pitch usage. That's very much an organizational philosophy thing. But his velocity's up this year. I think partially because the Cubs are saying we're not throwing you 6 or 7 innings like you were going in Milwaukee last year. You're going shorter stints. You're going 4 innings, 5 innings. Throw your fastball harder because the fastball's up a tick this year. The stuff is up the tick this year. He looks better overall. So I just give a big pitching advantage to the Cubs here for the first 5 innings. Bullpens gets much closer. In fact, I favor the Phillies bullpen, but the Phillies went to extra innings the other day. They had yesterday off, but they went to extra innings against the Mets. They used their bullpen very heavily in 3 close games, all losses against the Mets. But all 3 games were close enough where they had to actually bring in their guys. Kerkering blew a game, in the middle of that series. Like, He has not been that good this year. Romano has not been that good this year. Alvarado, Strahm have both been fine, but that was my take on the Phillies coming into the season and why I bet they're one total under. It's the same team with a better rotation and a worse bullpen as last year. Their bullpen almost had nowhere to go but down from last year, and it has. So overall, the Cubs bullpen scares the crap out of me. I do not love betting on the Cubs and their bullpen. In fact, the last game that we bet Colin Ray was that very drunk game against the Arizona Diamondbacks where the Diamondbacks put up that 10-run inning to take the lead, and then the Cubs took it right back in the bottom half and won 13-11. So I don't hope the sweat is anywhere near that drastic today and this afternoon. But the other thing I want to mention on this game, you can bet the Cubs up to minus 135. I like them quite a bit for either half, first five or full game. Wind in and 53 degrees at first pitch here. So this is Taijuan Walker against Colin Ray. This is the Cubs bullpen that seems to be giving up 5-run innings every time they're forced to throw 3 or 4 innings. But this should be an under game. I make the total 8, but I also kind of fudge my weather adjustment here because I'm sick of betting these Cubs unders. And I do not view these guys as run suppressing pitchers against offenses that walk a lot. The Cubs are second in walk rate. I think the Cubs are fifth in walk rate. The Phillies are second. So when you talk about, bad weather game, ball not flying as far for home runs, yes, but there's probably going to be a lot of guys on base via the walk. And I don't want to be sweating those run scoring opportunities for 9 innings with the Cubs bullpen and then also with Taijuan Walker on the other side. So I'm going to pass on the under. You could probably bet the under, but Cubs minus 130, minus 135, one of my favorite bets today.
This next one caught my eye for a few reasons. One, it's the longest road trip in baseball. The Miami Marlins traveling crisscross to the other corner of the United States, the continental United States, I should say, the Seattle Mariners. But also, this caught my attention because you rarely are comfortable laying this kind of number. Minus 220 on the first 5 on the Mariners. And I get it. Listen, Logan Gilbert, 4th in the AL Cy Young futures market. He's phenomenal. He's a special talent against Cal Quantrill, who is not. This guy's just eating up innings on the way out for his career. He just gave up 7 earned in 3 1/3 in Philly. So it's just a simple matchup. You have a star pitcher against a tin can. You have the travel advantage. First 5 seems like the play is minus 220. Like, how big is that range would you go up to be able to lay a big number with the Mariners?
Yeah, well, I want to see exactly what I made it. I feel like I made it minus 280. And again, like as you mentioned, I don't bet favorites this steep. I make it minus 280. I don't bet favorites this steep mostly because I generally can't get a line that far. But for the first 5 innings specifically, the gap between starters will always be bigger than the gap between bullpens, right? The biggest gap you'll have between a bullpen is like a run and a half on an ERA. The biggest gap you'll have between 2 starting pitchers is 2.5, 3.5 runs. Logan Gilbert, 2.5 expected ERA, Cal Quantrill, 7. So 3.5 runs on an expected ERA differential there. Like, how big apart can I make the Marlins bullpen compared to the Mariners bullpen? 2 runs, a run and a half. Like you can't get the delta that far. So the first 5 line, my first 5 line will almost always be a bigger favorite than the full game line, just because stuff should push closer together once the bullpens get involved. But something I noticed here, both of these offenses are surprised this season. Seattle's 4th, Miami's 18th in WRC+. Mariners look great offensively, taking a lot of pitches, getting on base. Cal Raleigh driving in runners. Miami, though, despite surprising offensively, they're 10th against lefties. 104 WRC+ against lefties. They're 24th against righties. So Logan Gilbert getting the better of their splits matchup tonight. He's been even better than we expected coming into the season, too. I bet him for AL Cy Young. I said he might be the best or second best pitcher in the AL, along with Tarek Skubal. 2.5 expected ERA for Gilbert this season. His strikeout minus walk rate has gone up to 32%. He has a 1.6 expected FIP. Gilbert has been phenomenal. Like, I think he's given up some runs, and I believe we might have lost the first 5 bet, like 1-0 or 2-1 against him on the A's earlier in the season, but he's been even better than he was expected to be coming into the year. He was better than he was in the second half of last year when he modified his pitch mix. And as I mentioned, Cal Quantrill, as you mentioned, Cal Quantrill, expected ERA of 7, a 5.8 bot ERA, a true gas can, a guy we've enjoyed betting against for quite some time, just gives up base hits in absolute abundance and can't strike anybody out. So mostly the offensive splits here, I think, is driving the edge. Like, obviously Gilbert against Quantrill, but it's the Marlins kind of have that buried lefty-righty split, and it's pretty drastic thus far, and it seems to pop up in my model as well. So Mariners first 5 made it minus 280. You could use it as a parlay piece up to about minus 275, but as a straight bet, minus 260 is where I cut it off.
All right, looking next at the Giants and the Rangers on the West Coast. Talk to me about Justin Verlander, because he had a very rocky April. Then he turns back the clock in his last outing against the Halos, allowing just 4 base runners in 6 innings worth of work. Can we trust him?
With Patrick Bailey behind the dish, you can, because Bailey is a magician, and Verlander is still a guy who, with the umpires in place, is going to get the benefit of called strikes outside of the zone, in the shadow zone, and Patrick Bailey is the guy to steal those strikes for him. Best pitch framing catcher in the sport. Some people think it's Cal Raleigh. Some people think Gabriel Marino's in the mix. It is Patrick Bailey by the metrics. Patrick Bailey in versus Patrick Bailey out, a significant difference for the Giants, both on the money line and in terms of the total. You saw the total go over in the afternoon there yesterday between the Brewers and Giants. Patrick Bailey was not in that lineup. If you were planning on betting the Giants, make sure Patrick Bailey is going to be in the lineup that day. I'm not kidding when I say he's worth about 3% to the money line projection, which is like almost, it's basically worth as much as Juan Soto being in or out of the Mets lineup. Like I'm not saying Patrick Bailey is Juan Soto level impact, but what I'm saying is on their pitching staff, the amount of strikes he's going to steal, the defensive influence can almost get to that level. I do think overall catcher defense, game calling, that's something that people tend to underrate. And I think betting markets, modelers, I think in general, people underrate catcher defense. There are data points you can use to quantify it. Going forward next year, automated strike zone going to matter less than it does now. But right now it still matters quite a bit. Even watching the D-backs start yesterday, these veteran pitchers, Corbin Burns, just getting pitches called like way inside, or way outside. Like umpires give the vets a little bit more deference. Justin Verlander are going to get more deference than basically anybody else. Now, this is probably a battle between B bullpens here. The Rangers bullpen blew a game in Oakland. Damn it, I did it again, Mike. I said Oakland. In West Sacramento. They blew a game in West Sacramento last night. I got to put a coin in the piggy bank for my Oakland swear jar today. Yeah, we're likely getting a matchup between B bullpens here. And I just prefer the Giants B bullpen, frankly. Rangers blew it last night. The Giants went to Duvall, Rodgers, Miller on consecutive days against the Brewers. Randy Rodriguez might be the best reliever in baseball this season. 1.5 expected ERA, 2.5 body ERA, 117 stuff plus. Hasn't walked a batter yet. 13 strikeouts in 9 innings. Just absolutely phenomenal, Randy Rodriguez. And then the other Giants relievers even behind him. Birdsong, who they'll use for multiple innings. This is a very deep bullpen, and part of the reason at the top why I said I like the Giants maybe better than the Padres at this point. Their lineups are comparable, and the Giants' bullpen is better. Maybe the Padres have the better starting pitching, but I'd take the Giants' bullpen over the Padres' bullpen. And clearly over the Rangers' bullpen. So I make the Rangers. I didn't bet this until after the Rangers game ended. I was in line with the market. I made the Giants about minus 120, minus 118 before that Rangers game ended. After the Rangers game ended, I bumped it up to about minus 125 because I adjusted for the Rangers bullpen usage. So Giants up to about minus 114, minus 115, where I'd bet it. And Bailey will be in there tonight because he sat yesterday.
Now the Mets are heading down I-95 to take on the Nats. And this one you're going to have to sell me on because the Mets are a wagon right now. And the Nats are in the bottom third in the NL in average, slugging, runs scored. And then you got Senga on the bump for the Mets. He's given up 1 run all season long in 22 2/3 innings worth of work. Is this purely just a price situation with the Nats in that plus 150, plus 160 window? Talk me through why you like the home underdog here.
It's always a price situation for me, but Senga under the hood, stuff plus is down this year, 107 to 94. Velocity's down. He dealt with injuries last year. And his bot ERA has gotten worse in every single start. 3.74, 393, 488, and then 520 in his last outing. So yes, he has not given up a run. Yes, he has an expected ERA of about 2.6, but pitching models say there's regression coming and say that there is implosion potential here. Now, I also like the over in this game. Over 8.5, over 9, 76 degrees, 9-mile-an-hour winds blowing out tonight in DC. This is a park that we do not talk about much from an offensive influence perspective, but it's actually one of the better offensive parks to begin with. And when the wind is blowing out, it really plays in favor of the offenses. About 8% in favor of offenses is where it should play tonight. So, and that's roughly the average at Nationals Park. Very, like, this isn't a park we talk about a lot with wind. We talk about Wrigley a lot. We've been talking about Steinbrenner Field a bunch in terms of the wind. Nationals Park is actually very wind influenced, wind in or wind out. And when you have that wind stream blowing out to left center like it is tonight, it should boost the run scoring environment overall. So this team, the Nationals just got Cedar Abrams back last night. You know, that sort of lifts the overall offensive profile as a team. Dylan Cruz has been hitting better over the past week. It's mostly James Wood, the James Wood show, though. Like, James Wood is a superstar, already a superstar at 22 years old. 414 expected WOBA, 156 WRC plus for Wood. And he's pulled one fly ball this year, which went a mile. But everything is left center with him. You know, everything is opposite field, left center. He hit a home run in Miami that made the Marlins announcers just like speechless. It was an low inside sinker bearing in on him. And he kind of like golfed it and hit an opposite field home run on a line the other way. And they were just like, I mean, you know, there's probably two guys in baseball who are strong enough to do that. 6'7", 235 pounds, and he's 80th percentile in sprint speed too. Just one of the best athletes in the sport. Loved watching James Wood play. And I think getting Abrams back at the top of their lineup, their table setter. This team still, you know, they don't strike out a ton. Like, they put balls in play. Should have a little bit of better luck going forward and play closer to a league average offense. The issue is the bullpen. You know, 6.9 ERA, 4.8 expected FIP, which is 29th. There's two teams worse than them, maybe in terms of the bullpen. Like, Miami and Colorado maybe have worse bullpens. I'm not even sure if that's the case. The Nationals bullpen is horrific. So it's both the Nationals and the over here. Nationals plus 155 down to about plus 145, and then the over 8.5, over 9 at even money. Both fine for me. It's splitting between the two. But yeah, I think Senga has the chance to collapse based upon where the pitch modeling metrics are going.
Basically, throughout the season, we're right next to the Underdog River. We're panning for gold. We're looking for those teams that are undervalued, potentially a bounce back spot for a pitcher, maybe a lineup that's going to pull out of a slump. But it does feel good from time to time to just say, it's simple. Colorado's lineup stinks. They're ice cold. We're going to have that impact on the over in this game. They've scored 14 runs in their last 5 games, and that includes an extra inning matchup with the Royals. You get the Coors Field element. I know that that's usually overstated, but you got to keep riding the unders here, right? I mean, it's sitting at 9 between the Reds and Rockies. I personally, of all the ones that you're laying out in terms of totals, this one is the one that I like the best.
51 degrees at first pitch as well, with a real feel of 43 and 10 mile an hour winds blowing in from center field. So this knocked down the run scoring environment tonight at Coors Field by about 20%. Coors normally plays about 25 to 30% above league average. Tonight, it should play closer to a neutral park. So I make this total 8.6. On a normal night at Coors, I would probably make this closer to 10.5. But those are severe pitching conditions. Again, real feel of 43 with 10 mile an hour winds blowing in throughout the game. So yeah, under here. Rockies also coming off of that doubleheader and a travel day last night too. So you got to factor in the travel rest situation. Like, that lineup is a little banged up, extra playing time. But the bullpen, fortunately, is in okay shape despite playing a doubleheader yesterday. Okay shape is relative for the Rockies bullpen, which I just said is one of the bottom 3 in baseball, but they're not coming in with, you know, an entirely fatigued group of relievers here and hoping their starter just gets through 7 innings. They can actually go to their bullpen tonight. So yeah, under between Colorado and Cincinnati. And hopefully Andrew Abbott, who I seem to bet against a lot, hopefully he doesn't implode tonight.
The West Sacramento Athletics against the White Sox, a series only a gambler could love. Every time that you mention them as Oakland, I'm going to go ahead and drop in a fun fact for Sacramento. The farm to fork capital, and they also boast a thriving craft beer scene there in Sacramento, so good for you guys up there in NorCal. I'm going to go ahead and say this in terms of your play. You like the under 9 here, and I'm just a little bit gun-shy because Severino got shelled by the Cubs and the Padres, but other than that, he's looked really sharp this season. The White Sox, though, have barely hit above the Mendoza line as a team for the entire season. So I kind of go back and forth. I'm hoping that one side doesn't have a breakout performance in terms of their sticks, but I guess I could lean under here.
Yeah, this is the chilliest it's been in Sacramento all year. 54 degrees at first pitch, 54 real feel at first pitch. It was slightly warmer yesterday. The wind is blowing out tonight, 89 miles an hour. And this is a game where if the A's just soar over the game total on their own, I'm not going to be shocked. The White Sox pitching is absolutely awful. But as you said, the White Sox do not hit. I believe they were last or second last in terms of WRC plus, coming off of a rained out game yesterday. Yes, a literal act of God took away our easy under 8, well into the late innings. Umpires said, that's enough. We ran out of diamond dry. We're going to call this thing. The Twins, no backbone whatsoever, down 3 runs to the Chicago White Sox, just wave the white flag, accept the defeat. Like, you guys don't think you can win that game at that point? The Minnesota Twins? Just call the season then. Like, what's the point of playing the rest of the games if you don't want to come out for 6 more outs against the Chicago White Sox? But that said, the White Sox got the rest of their bullpen yesterday, right? Because they got that off day. They got to travel a little bit earlier, get out of there. So, all that being said, like, Sevy should throw strikes. Hopefully the A's could actually clean up the mistakes behind him. The A's bullpen may not be so terrible. And that's like the real takeaway thus far. They're playing in a horrendous park for pitching. And they're going to hit a lot and score a lot of runs, but the back end of that A's bullpen may not be so bad. Man, Jacob Wilson is so much fun to watch. He's my AL Rookie of the Year right now. He projects as the AL WAR leader among rookies at the end of the year. Got that walk-off hit last night. So an incredibly fun team to watch. It's a shame that they're playing in a minor league park because I love watching this offense. There is a lot of energy there, which is good. But the A's going to continue to be one of the most fun teams to watch, I think, the rest of the way. This young offense is really enjoyable. And I don't know, like, are they in the wild card hunt because they can hit every single day? I wouldn't rule them out. I think the A's are a lot of fun. If their pitching was marginally better, I'd be interested in betting them to win the wild card or win a wild card. It's just, I don't think the pitching is good enough to be there. The Angels can hit too. The Angels could pitch a little bit better than them. So I don't see like a huge difference between those two teams, but I actually think both the A's and the Angels are better than we thought coming into the year. And the Astros may be worse. The Mariners may be a little better. Rangers probably about as good as we expected. So can one of these teams hop the Astros by the end of the year? Maybe. It's possible.
Last play on your card. Toronto has been in free fall. They've lost 5 straight. They've been outscored by 22 runs in that stretch. But this is a good buy low time with the Yankees sending Carrasco to the bump for this start. I mean, anything else that I'm missing aside from just fading the Yankee starter here?
Yeah, this was the game where I was going to talk about like just letting the model dictate for me. I do not like Jose Barrios. I've bet against Jose Barrios probably about as much as anybody over the past few years. He's a guy who came up as a pretty high prospect, got a lot of hype when he was in Minnesota, had some good seasons early on, but then he seemed to have this like number 2 starter, number 1 starter reputation long after he had been a below average guy. And I felt like he was always overrated by the betting markets. I've probably bet on him 4 times now this year. The Jays are a very good defensive team. They actually project very well offensively too. Surprisingly, my model has these lineups as very close. The hold your nose aspect of this game, and I bet the Jays at plus 145. It was plus 115 within a matter of hours. So the market was just wrong here, and I wasn't the only one to see it. It's not like there was a pitching change or anything. Like just a bad line, just high, and it came back down. So there's no value on the Jays at this point. There may be value on the under, and that's the real hold your nose aspect of this game. And again, like why I'm letting the model do the talking here. 59-degree real field first pitch, a little bit chillier here today in New York than it has been the past couple of days. Humidity lower, not nearly as hot as it has been. It got quite warm the past few days. Air conditioner guy had to come, turn my AC on for the summer. Like that's how warm it got. The house was getting up to 80 degrees inside. So going to be a little bit chillier tonight. The wind, we have a big cross breeze here. Cross breezes don't really affect the ball flight going out, but it does affect the overall temperature in the real field, the temperature, which is going to drop the feel of everything by about 10 degrees, make those hands a little bit tighter at the plate. But I made this total about 9.25. This is not particularly good hitting weather. That said, Carrasco could blow it up on his own. Barrios could blow it up on his own. But these are actually 2 very good defensive teams. That's what kind of gets overlooked about the Yankees, and why I think the Jays are better than the market in general. Both play really good team defense. A lot of guys who on islands are good defenders. I talked about the Yankees a lot earlier in the year, but they changed up their defensive alignment completely this year. Getting Bellinger, who's an average center fielder, moving Judge makes Judge an average right fielder. Glaber was one of the worst defensive second basemen. Jazz is an above average second baseman. So the Yankees made a lot of small changes that improved them significantly on the defensive spectrum. And the Jays in general, they went out and got Andres Jimenez, who's probably the best defender in the sport, if not the second best defender. Overall, like these two teams play good defense and should rob hits. And hopefully if these guys give up homers, there's solo shots or one guy on base instead of multiple runners.
Before we get to Billy Ward's YRFIs and NRFIs for Friday, we should mention the Pirates and the Dodgers just from a pitching matchup. Skeens against Yamamoto. This is an incredibly public play, a square play, but why shouldn't I take over 6.5 Ks for Skeens, over 7.5 Ks for Yamamoto? It's plus 255 when you parlay them together.
I think Skeens is intentionally trying to put more balls in play this year. We talked about it with the sinker usage in spring training. He's throwing a sinker about 5% of the time this year, and his ground ball rate has gone up 5%, 51% to 56%, but both his strikeout rate and his walk rate are down. So he's trying to end plate appearances quicker. He's trying to get deeper into starts, and as a result, he's pitching to contact a little bit more. Now, does he do that against the Dodgers tonight? A team who, when they put the ball in play, they tend to damage you. Does he try to pitch more to his strikeout, more four-seam fastballs, fewer sinkers tonight? Maybe. I can't tell you exactly what he's going to do tonight, but if he pitches tonight, as he has pitched thus far in 2025, I actually think there's value on the under 6.5 strikeouts. If he's trying to put the ball in play and get at bats over with quicker, it makes his over outs prop, more appealing. And maybe there's some correlation on over outs and under strike, or not correlation, but like an actual bet that you can make that would typically be negative correlation that may actually end up being value is Skeens over outs and under 6.5 strikeouts. Maybe there's a combination you could make there, considering his intentionality with pitching to contact, trying to get deeper into starts. And as a result, strikeout and walks have both gone down this year. So, underlying metrics, expected ERA, 287, expected FIP is down. His strikeout rate, as I said, his strikeout rate's down, but the walk rate also down. Expected ERA down from 253 to 206. Body ERA down from 36 to 326. So Skeens is actually trending in a better direction without getting as many strikeouts, which is an interesting trend to see. Overall, I do think he's a better pitcher than he was last year, even though he's given up more runs. The ERA is a little bit higher, but under 6.5 strikeouts actually where I'd lean for Skeens. And with the over 17.5 outs could be an interesting SGP.
If you've been skipping ahead 30 seconds at a time, stop. You have arrived at the Billy Ward section of the pod here. He's going to give you his best YRFI NRFIs for Friday.
Thanks, guys. Busy slate today. I have 4 YRFI and NRFI picks, mostly NRFIs, paying a little bit of juice today, but that's what the projection's like. The first one is Rays Padres. We've got Shane Baz taking on Michael King. Best line I'm seeing right now is minus 140. I like it down to minus 150. A lot of this, and this will come up with our next pick as well, is Petco Park in San Diego is a great pitcher's park. Also have 2 pretty solid pitchers. Really the only risk at the top here is that Fernando Tatis ruins it for us. If Shane Baz can get through him, should be pretty smooth sailing. Neither lineup is especially scary. And again, at Petco Park, that's much less of a risk than it would be if this were in Tampa Bay. Similar projection on Marlins versus Mariners NRFI. This one's as good as minus 125 at BetMGM. I like it down to minus 140. Logan Gilbert is very good. He's taking on the Marlins at home. Not very much worried about that side at all. Gilbert also has very good first time through the order splits. A little bit riskier on the other side because Cal Quantrill has been very bad this season, but he has allowed just 1 run his first time through the order and 15 runs after that throughout the season. So as bad as he's been with his ERA over 8, actually been pretty solid to start the game. And he gets to pitch in Seattle, which is the best pitcher's park in all of baseball. The lone YRFI of the day, we have Braves Diamondback. It's at even money at DraftKings or ESPN Bet. A little bit scary with the Chris Sale game, but Chris Sale has struggled this season, and he's taken on a Diamondbacks team that is pretty strong at the top of the order. Same thing on the other side. Gallen has been a little bit better. The Braves are also a pretty strong top of the order team, and it's an 8.5 run total with an even money YRFI, so that's typically going to show as a strong projection just because there's a better than 50% chance that one of those 8.5 runs comes in the first inning. The last one, probably the premier game of the day, is Pirates-Dodgers. The NRFI is minus 141 is the best line. I like that one down to about minus 150. We got a fun pitching matchup between Yamamoto and Skeens. Yamamoto against the Pirates is very, very unlikely to have a first inning run. Yamamoto's ERA is less than 1. The Pirates are bad offense. We're not worried there. But the other side, we have a very strong pitcher against a very good lineup with Skeens taking on the Dodgers. Skeens hasn't been quite as good to start this season. He has an ERA right around 3. But the earliest anyone has scored a run against him has been in the 3rd inning this season. His first time through the order ERA is a perfect 0.00. Even against Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Teoscar Hernandez, which is our projected first 3 Dodgers, I like Skeens in that matchup. I've got this value down to about minus 150. And again, it's pretty one-sided risk because the Pirates' offense is pretty bad. So anytime we get one team that we're not worried about, it's going to show a strong value on the NRFI. And that is the 4 I have for today. Good luck, everyone. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Billy. Appreciate it. Best of luck in the first inning there. That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets that you heard from today's episode, look for the quick slip links in the episode description. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to the pod. Also, check out the Action Network Discord, where you can cut it up with Action Network experts as well as other Major League Baseball betting enthusiasts. And we'll see you here on Monday for more best bets. And don't forget, that show will be live every single Monday on the YouTube page. So if you want to get in early, get those absolute best numbers as they come off of the card, be sure to tune in on YouTube on Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern. For Sean Zerillo, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. And good luck with all your bets.